Welcome to the Create the Life You Want podcast, where we break down the journey of people just like you going from dream to ownership in business acquisitions, franchises, and startups. I'm your host, Jeremy Ames. Today's episode is brought to you ad-free by Guidant Financial. Guidant is America's leading company helping aspiring entrepreneurs use retirement funds to buy or start businesses. If you're committed to buying or starting a business, you can find out more about your funding options by going to www.guidantfinancial.com. That's Guidant financial.com. Now, let's get started with the show. Welcome, everyone, to the Create the Life You Want podcast. Today, I am joined by James Kellas, and James has an interesting story. He got into a business that has nothing to do with what his career was before, and we're going to find out a little bit about how he identified wanting to get into that line of business, and then he's got a pretty unique story about how he actually found that company to purchase. So welcome to the show, James.
Thank you.
Why don't we start off by, why don't you tell us what your life looked like before you became a business owner? What were you doing? What did you go to school for?
I went to school to be an English teacher.
Okay.
And halfway through, I went to UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago. Halfway through, I realized that it's illegal to strangle kids and stuff like that. Probably not a good fit for me. So I dropped out. And a friend of mine from high school created a company in Silicon Valley, and he invited us to come here, PayPal. So he invited me and several other people to move from Chicago and University of Illinois to come work for him. And so I was like, sure, I know computers a bit, let's do this. And then a little over, after some years, I self-taught myself to program and fully understand that business and that, all those different models and all this and that. And ended up staying in the industry for about 20 years.
So one of your college friends was one of the PayPal founders, or just went to work there?
Yep.
So PayPal fascinates me because there is $1 billion IRA that I know of, and it's owned by a guy named Peter Thiel.
Yep.
Which for sure you've heard of. So who was your buddy that you were in college with?
Max Levchin.
Okay, awesome. So Max recruited you to come out and work for PayPal. You were in the industry for 20 years. Did you always think you might want to be a business owner? Did some of Max rub off on you and you're thinking, well, this sounds pretty cool?
Actually, it was before that, but yes, being in the startup world, you really do get the urge and wants to do that. No, my uncle was a business owner for a bunch of pizza shops and a bar and a small newspaper in Chicago, and I worked for him at his last pizza place for about 5 years during high school, for 8th grade and then through high school. And I had loved it. I loved the idea of running a business and making your own hours and yada, yada. Getting into the tech, the startup world specifically, that really drove it in. And I tried a couple of startups of tech startups of my own. I just wasn't good at selling it. I could build it, I just didn't know how to sell it. So they didn't do anything. I sold one product. That's what got me into it. And then
first of all, I love this. So
yeah.
you had a couple dates with Destiny as it related to entrepreneurship, and they didn't go well the first couple times. So if you would stop there, you would have qualified yourself as a failed English teacher and a failed entrepreneur. But
a good programmer.
A good programmer. And so it sounds like you learned something about yourself during this, that you were really good at thinking about product and how to improve things, but maybe that selling was not the thing that was your forte. Yeah,
exactly. And so at some point, I was the last tech company I was at was LinkedIn, and while I was there, things just went crazy. They were bought by Microsoft, and then the stock went way up. So even though I wasn't there at the beginning, I still ended up getting a good chunk of cash at the time. And then I said, okay, I'm going to have a business on the side, and I bought into a franchise for a couple of hair salons. With the model of you own it, but you hire a manager to run it, and you're hands off. It's not
Oh,
like that.
I wanted to have that one.
Yeah,
I have
it's
very
not.
strong opinions about passive businesses. So James, walk us through that whole journey.
It's not passive, not at all. I ended up spending quite a bit of time on it, and it was all the way from signing the contract with them to doing the build outs at the. I had two locations. To then when opening doors, it's like, okay, here you go, manager, do your job, and it's no. There was still a lot of work on my part, and they were doing well. And they both got to a point within. The first one took about a year and a half. The second one took about 7 months, but they both got to a break even point. And so I was going to be able to finally breathe.
Yeah.
uh, and then, just terrible timing. We're here in California, and we were the first to shut down for the pandemic, and we're also the last to open. And guess where? Guess what time my shops got to break even? Just before the pandemic. So, lick my wounds. I sold one off for pennies on a dollar. The second one, I tried to make it work, but I lost all my employees, lost a majority of, or about 50% of my customers, who then, the ones that did want to keep coming back, they were at about half the frequency as they were before because, hey, they're sitting at home working in front of a computer like we're doing today.
Yeah.
So they didn't need to look great. So I ended up just having to shut that one down.
Wow. So James, we're really going to cover the whole gamut of everything here. So your first couple forays into this were for startups. It didn't go well, but you learned something about yourself
Mhm,
and what your skill set was.
mhm.
Then you had this idea, okay, really what I want to do is create this passive business. So you took some of these dollars that you had earned as equity in
Yep.
these companies that you work for that have gone public or have sold, and that didn't go well at all. It sounds like it wasn't passive in the least. So when you
Nope.
say not passive, how much time was it taking from you, and what did you learn from that experience?
I was easily spending about 30 hours a week, maybe 40, because there was a lot of weekend time I was spending there. Um, but, as if you're listening to this, it sounds like, oh my God, it was terrible, blah, blah, blah. I loved it. I really did. All the way up until the pandemic, I was loving it, even though it wasn't a passive. I was still loving the idea that we're doing something that was adding real value. People love to look good, and the model of the business that I had, it was called Bishop's Cuts and Color. It was for men and women, and they did a really good job of having barber chairs and someone getting a shave right next to someone getting a balayage hairstyling. It was a really weird concept, but it worked really well, and I loved it. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, I would still own them.
Yeah, and so it sounded like the pandemic changed quite a few things for you. So
Yeah.
the pandemic hits, it basically undercuts what you had built in this business that had been not so passive, but you had finally got to a point where it was break
Mhm.
even. You finally had a manager, I'm assuming, at that point that was
Yeah.
operating somewhat independently. What happened then, and how did this
Oh,
take you on the next leg of your journey?
yeah. This is where things got really interesting. While that was all happening, I got laid off at LinkedIn in February, just before the pandemic, and I was like, "Oh my God! At least the shops are self sufficient now. At least I don't have to keep putting money in, and I got a good amount of cash put to the side. This is fine. I'm going to take a break." I went to London, had a little vacation, and then they started hearing about this whole pandemic thing going on, and it was hitting Italy at the time, and I was like, I'm going to head back home. Uh, and then I had to practice up coding, my coding skills, because the interviews at the top places are grueling. You have to do like a lot of whiteboard coding and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
remembering a bunch of algorithms that I hadn't used in years takes a good 2 3 weeks of practice. But I was ready to go. And then I got all these interviews lined up, and one by one by one, either they would cancel because, oh, we have a hiring freeze, or I'd go through the interview process and are like, oh, Jim, one company, I'm not going to mention the name, but one company, I got all the way through the whole process. The last day was talking about compensation. And the guy goes, Jim, I'm sorry. Um, I just got an email 30 minutes ago. We have a hiring freeze. So like, oh, what the? So then after that one, I says, that's it. I'm going to just sit for a while. And yeah, I just wasn't doing anything. My businesses were closed, and I couldn't get a job anywhere. I wasn't hurting financially, which is at least good, but I was bored to death. And my wife was telling me, you need to get back out of here. So I came up with a weird idea. With a little bit of help, I looked online for different things, whatever, but I got this idea of like, let me see if I can find a business that completely changed my career and become a business owner and actually do it full time, and be the manager of the shop or whatever business it is. And so I went to the SBA, which is a government entity, and all government entities have tons and tons of data that you can pour through. And I said, well, they're giving a bunch of loans, or they're backing a bunch of loans and everything. They've got to know who's doing well, who's not. And so I made up a spreadsheet that had a bunch of criteria that I was looking for. One was what didn't shut down during the pandemic and was going to continue on. What was a need? I wanted something brick and mortar because I had experience with a brick and mortar business, dealing with customers. The advertising is very similar in a lot of those. And I found quickly that home repair businesses were a really hot commodity. And auto repair was also only slightly more risky, but also a very hot commodity.
And mean by hot commodity, what do you mean? A lot of deals were happening, or the default rates were super low?
Yeah, default rates were super low, and they were mostly run by a bunch of old people that are a lot of them are wanting to get out of these businesses, and they never built it for today. So their advertising model was poor. They didn't have a good P&L. They didn't have any of these things to. They didn't understand social media, any of these things. And so I would look at them and say, like, yeah, one of the criteria that I had when I started looking at different businesses is they got to have excellent reviews on Google and Yelp, because if I got that, I can go, hog wild on it and have it bloom, because I can piggyback off of the good quality that was there before, and I can do good quality myself. So there are a bunch of things like that I was looking for, and I started spamming pretty much every business over like 5 different states to see if anyone was looking to sell.
Okay, James, I got to put a pin in a couple of these things because
Sure.
follow-up questions I have. So
Sure.
I want to parrot a couple things back and make sure I understand this. So you decided, hey, I can't get a job and this other business is imploding. So I'm going to go find a job that's of enough of a size where it can pay me to manage and run it.
Absolutely.
And so you started with data on the SBA and you said,
Yep.
I'm going to look for low default rates. And then when I see what's popping up in terms of those lowest default rates, I'm then going to go out and do a little bit of research on it. And you sort of identified home repair businesses and auto repair businesses as ones with really low default rates. And as you dug into them, you found this interesting fit with what your background is and what they don't take advantage of, meaning you've got an incredible technical background, you know social media well, you had the experience with Bishops where you had to figure out how to do retail marketing to bring customers into a physical location. So you're putting all these pieces together and saying, these old businesses that might even be operating on fax machines, like I can come in and introduce real efficiencies and opportunities there. Okay, so that's great. I want to hear the specifics. Now that you identified that, what did you put in these emails that you spammed out? Did you just cold email these people? Did you follow up over a period of time? Like, walk us through your strategy here.
I used a CRM that was automatically that would send out a broad email to everyone saying, "Hey, you got a great business, so on and so forth. I'm looking to buy right now. Are you interested at this time? Do you want to chat?" And it was very short and quick. And then it would automatically resend the message after a few days, then 5 days, 7 days, and lo and behold, some of them started responding.
Okay. What
Um,
CRM did you use specifically?
oh God, I cannot think of the name of it off the top of my head. It's something on. It's from Boston. I remember following this guy a long time ago. He started when he started this his CRM up at the time. I cannot think of it at the moment. Sorry.
Anything particular about the CRM that drew you in? Was it inexpensive or free, or it just had a certain set of features that?
It was inexpensive and easy to use
Okay.
for me, and I happened to follow the person that started that company. It was still relatively new, and so
Yeah.
I figured I knew that the guy was doing a great job, so I figured he built a good product, so I used it, and it worked for what I was going to do.
So, how did you create this list of potential businesses to drop into the CRM and put on your email follow up?
Oh God, that was a lot of scraping the internet. Uh,
Okay. Scraping meaning you wrote programs to pull data in, or you did some
yeah,
manuals?
so I started searching on Google to kind of hard to explain, but there's I would set a keyword to start with and start typing it in my program, and then do you ever notice when you start typing in on Google that it will
Give you
it'll
a few
start like
prompts, things to
yeah,
answer with?
several different things. I would grab those and then reuse those to keep searching on. And then as I found those, I would find other businesses, and it would grab the company's names and stuff like that. So
Got it.
we
But
can
if
go on and on, but
so you could have done this manually. You just started with like auto repair business in whatever location, and then you saw what kind of things were dropping down, and you used that to guide other search terms and see what things popped up.
yeah, except it was a program that I wrote,
Yeah,
and
program.
so for each state and each industry, it was done in like 5 seconds.
Yeah. If you were doing it manually, walk us through how you would have done it, just because probably most of the people listening to this are not going to be, engineers that would write a program to do this. They'd either need to.
So it was really just type into Google, look for auto repair uh, California. And then it was like certain areas of California I was looking for as I narrowed it down. So it was like, okay, auto repair San Diego. And then I found a bunch of auto repair shops in San Diego, and the best ones with the highest ratings would show up at the top.
Yeah.
And I just kept going on and on and on and on.
So you chose how did you choose the geographies? And I'm assuming you decided you were willing to move to certain places in order to make this transition.
Yeah, it came down to where would I like to live was part of it.
You found the business first, the industry that you thought was most promising. Then it
Mhm.
was, okay, now I'm going to negotiate with my wife on where we could actually move
Yep,
to tighten the geography. And then you started pulling in all of what you could find in those areas for your list to reach out to.
yep. And
Okay.
I got really close on a roofing company in Colorado in the Denver area.
Because that's
Uh,
within the home repair.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, not to be clear, home repair, not home upgrades. Because
Okay.
if you get a hole in your roof, you got to fix it,
That's it. Yeah.
right? You don't have to get a new kitchen, but you got to fix the hole in the roof.
Yep.
If you live in Arizona and your AC goes out, you will die. So you would have to get AC. So that's what I mean by home repair, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry
Yeah.
if I didn't
So
clarify
there
that
was some.
before. Yeah, exactly. Um, so I got pretty close to it, and then the guy came back to me after we were negotiating money and everything, and he goes, "My wife said 5 more years." Like, are you sure? I was ready to move to Denver and everything.
Yeah. Oh man. So how many? companies do you think you put on this list? How many responses did you get, and how many sort of actual meetings or conversations? Break down for us the funnel a little bit to understand.
Sure. There were probably, it was over 1,000 different companies that I reached out to. I remember I got a response rate of about 5%.
Okay.
Uh, uh, and then probably about half of those were thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
And then,
We're down to
uh,
25.
yeah, exactly. uh, I think it was a little bit more, but it was, I don't remember the exact number, but I think there was closer to 50 companies that were possibles. So yeah, it must have been more. Uh, and then from that point, I got into conversations, and many of them right away I found out they were just too small, uh, because for me to get to a, a lot of businesses are really small, and the only way they're making money is by working in it. Well,
Yep.
I don't want to,
You
you
don't want
know,
to be the actual person changing the oil or fixing the engine.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
or putting on a new roof. I want to hire people to do that because that's what I'm good at. Um,
Did you know what that size threshold was when you started, or did you sort of figure that out as you were evaluating these businesses' responses from people in terms of what that range was?
Yeah, I had to, it took me a little bit. And then for each industry, it was a little bit different what that number was. But a good rule of thumb in general, and I was surprised that in the auto industry was the same. You figure you should be able to get 20% bottom line profit from your business. And so if a company is doing $1 million, it's probably not worth investing all that money, $1 million in revenue, sorry. It's probably not worth investing all that money to get into it. If it's a couple $1 million, okay, that's a couple $1 million revenue company. Then okay, I see that there's potential here.
So, what
Um,
range-ish did you settle on as you were looking at these companies?
2 to 5 million.
2 to 5. Okay, so two to
Yeah.
five is the target where you're saying, hey, I can more than replace my income with some upside that's going to make it worth it to
Mhm.
invest in this.
And I had the money to pay for that, not
Yeah,
to get a loan to because they're gonna. I was gonna get an SBA loan, and
yeah,
it was going to. They require like 10% down, and so on and so
yeah.
forth. So
So
uh, yeah.
when did you figure out what you could actually afford, and how did you figure that out? Walk us through that step by step.
Oh, many years ago, I well, many years ago, I was talking to the SBA about a business, and it never went through. So I had a general idea what they would do, and then when I went to open up the hair salons, I looked at a SBA loan. And as a startup, they want a lot of money down, but as an existing business, you can get one for quite reasonably about 10% down,
Yeah,
and that's including the down payment plus working capital is part of the loan. So if you borrow $1 million for a place that you're buying for $500,000, now you have a $500,000 to do upgrades and have working capital.
yep.
And I would only put in 100 grand of my own cash. Uh,
And so, what did you target in terms of how much cash you were going to put in this business, and how did you think about that number versus maybe your total savings?
yeah. So I had cash left over after being laid off, but I ended up losing a ton on the hair salons. So I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in that deal. So all this extra money I made, a lot of it was already gone. My family could live probably for a good year, 2 years off of the cash reserves we had, but I didn't want to dig into that to pay for it.
Yeah.
Um, so I had heard from God, I don't remember where I heard about it, but there's this program called Rob's rollover. Uh, you're
Roll up
using your
business startups. I'm very familiar with it. Yeah.
yeah, you can roll over your 401k and create a business off of it. I think the easiest way to explain it to people is you create a C corporation, and your 401k owns all the stock.
Yeah, it becomes an angel investor in your business, essentially.
Exactly. And so that's what I ended up doing. I was going to do that regardless. That was going to be my seed money. But
So
when it came, Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so let me back up. So it sounds like you decided you had some cash, but you wanted to preserve that personal cash on the side. You
Yeah.
instead decided to use an investment of retirement funds. Walk us through why you decided to do that in conjunction with your SBA loan versus using your own cash or getting investors, or what are the other things you considered?
Not using my own cash, I was concerned, especially since I'd just gone through a couple of businesses that I never made money on. I just got it to the point of breaking even. I wanted to make sure that I had cash so that I can make my mortgage payments, so that I can have food on the table, and everything else. My kids can finish school and whatever, and college and all the other fun stuff. So I wanted to make sure that that was secured, uh, and that left all the runway in the world for the businesses, for the business to ramp up and become successful. So I wasn't having to take cash out immediately.
Yeah. So that's how you decided to do that. So how much did you end up bringing in from, and it was all just 401k funds?
Yeah,
Okay. So how much did you end up
it
bringing?
was yeah, it was all 401k. Yeah, I think 220 grand. Yeah, was
So you bring in 220 via the 401k rollover.
yep.
And you use that essentially as the down payment on the SBA loan for the deal. So you kind of
Actually, I never ended up getting an SBA loan. Uh,
what? Okay, now
that
back
was
up.
that was my plan. I was expecting to buy a bigger business, and eventually, I was after all this coding that I did to try to find a good business to buy and everything on freaking Craigslist. I found this
Were you
auto shop.
okay?
uh,
Back up, and explain why did you look on Craigslist? How did you find this?
I was just looking everywhere.
Okay,
Craigslist was one of the places that I was randomly looking at. So there were Biz Buy Sell is another option, and BizBen, and I think there's another one out there. And just out of the blue, I looked on Craigslist and I found two auto shops. Both of them, one was about 30 minutes away from my house, the other one was about 20 minutes away. And I was
yeah,
like, huh. And the price range, the first one, it was all set up. And that was a 30 minutes away one. It looked in pristine condition, all this and that. The guy wanted, I thought, too much for where the business was, and it was going to require a loan.
how much?
Uh,
How did you figure out what was too much?
I was looking at profit margin
Okay,
for revenue, and without going too far into depth of this, I was calling BS on some of his numbers
got you did
because
data he was sharing with you.
not all of it. A lot of it was good, but there was also a lot of cash deals, and like, oh, I didn't put it in the system, and it's cash, but it was there. I can't prove it, so
And
it
so
ended up
he wanted valuation based on all of the deals, including the side ones that he did, which may or may not have existed, but often do because he's trying to avoid paying taxes on those, probably.
exactly. That's what
Okay.
it came down to. But I also didn't want to jump into a business that was doing shady things because now this is going to be in my name. And I didn't want people coming in saying, "Oh, you have this car is warranted." I don't have any details. It's not in my system. Oh yeah, I paid cash for that, and now it's your business, and I'm going to sue. No, no, I didn't. I didn't want to get in the middle of any of that.
Yeah.
Um, but the other one, uh, and the one I ended up buying, was about 20 minutes away from my house in Union City, California, and it was a complete dump. I'm not gonna lie. It was just terrible. Everything was a mess. There were you could literally take a spatula and scrape oil and grease off the floor. The front desk was customers had to walk through that to get to the front desk, which was kind of in the middle of the shop. Um, but it had, as they say in the real estate world, it had good bones. Um, it had a huge lot to it that no, and it was all enclosed in a fence. A bunch of junk cars in there, but I can get rid of the junk cars.
Yep.
So I had a lot of space. The turned out the landlord was very, very kind and very easy to work with. The rent was super cheap. I have there's like hardly any competition around here. Um, and this place is grandfathered in, and all these new apartments are being built over here, and all this. It was like this location is awesome.
So you've got demographics around there. You've got
Mhm,
something where you can see some really easy ways to
mhm,
upgrade and make it more approachable to
mhm.
people to come in there and use it. Anything
Yep.
else that you paid attention to or saw?
I mean, it had, despite it looking like a complete dump, it had the reviews. It was like a 4.9 on Yelp, and they hardly touched Google. All that's the smarter place to go, and that was like a 4.8. Um, and there were a lot of the wrong customers, but there were a lot of people coming in, and I just saw so much potential. And the kicker for my wife was I could pay cash for it, and I didn't have to take a loan.
Interesting. So, what was it doing in net income or seller's discretionary earnings, and how did you do the math to figure out what you were going to pay as a multiple of that? Or was this
There,
just on Craigslist and the guy said, "I just want this much money"?
that's what it came down to, and the amount made sense. 150 is what he asked for it,
Okay.
and since then, and I have a much better idea of the auto industry. Even in the shape that it was in, that was a hell of a deal
Yeah. So that was
for the size and everything.
less than 2x what the net income was.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
So yeah, that's a great deal.
yeah. Um, the in 2020, I bought it at the end of 2020. In 2020, it did 864,000 in revenue. Profit, I don't know what those guys actually put in their pocket because they too had a bunch of cash jobs on the side. I don't know. I'm only looking at the ones that I can confirm. Um, but here we are in 2024. We're going to well surpass 2 million. So I've 2.5x the business, and I was actually able to start making profit from it almost from day one. I
Yeah.
think by December was a profitable month right after I bought it.
Well, because you're also walking in with no debt. You bought a business that you didn't need to put
Exactly.
a loan on. So
So I had no debt servicing to deal with, so I was putting cash in my pocket almost immediately. Not a lot, but better than putting money in.
yeah. So walk us through any important things about getting the deal done that you think would be relevant for people who are thinking about going down this path.
um, Typically, for any of the other businesses I was looking at, where I was going to have to get a loan and everything, I was going to have to hire lawyers and accountants and all this, and have to look everything over and make sure I had a good contact and everything. But this was a very simple sale. It was I didn't buy their corporation. I created a new one, so it was just an asset sale.
Got it.
So they wrote down on a piece of paper, "Here's everything that's included in that cash." I gave them a check. They gave me the keys, and we walked away. I registered for all the licenses and everything as if it was a brand new business.
Now, how integral were these guys to the business? Did you have them stick around for a little while to help educate you or work with the team?
Sure. One guy, it was two owners. One guy, he was past his prime, and he was not able to work anymore. So
Got it.
he took care of the financials and paying people and everything. But the other guy was a full time technician in the shop, which was one of the things I was nervous about. Um, and because you lose a technician right away, but his he had one guy working for him for almost 20 years, and I was able to get him to stay.
Yeah.
I gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. uh, and he was able to stay, and so I immediately had my guy to lead the shop, and he's still with me. He's the foreman of my shop now.
Oh, awesome.
Um, but one problem I ran into quickly, and I foresaw it. It ended up being worse than I expected. Um, Chris was the working owner's name. If you looked at the old reviews and everything, it was Chris this, Chris that, Chris this, Chris that. He was the face of the shop.
Yeah.
And when he left, even though he was nowhere near, he didn't open up another shop. He moved to Arizona. Um,
Did you have him non-compete?
yeah, I did, but within I think a 50-mile range, he goes, I don't care, I'm moving to Arizona. Or he actually already owned a house in Arizona. He was commuting back and forth, so that's why he wanted out. Um, but so there wasn't a problem with that, but he did a lot of handshake deals and you know, sure, I'll throw that in. Oh, let me look at your car. I'll do that for free and free this, free that. I ended up doing a warranty job on a transmission, or excuse me, engine that the guy paid $2,800 for a rebuilt transmission
Wow.
in a car. I don't care what car that is. That was lost on day one, and then I had to warranty that in the future. But he was as he said, "Oh, I'm just too nice with the people." Well, no, you're just not being a good business person, is what it is.
Well,
Being nice to people is giving them good quality.
but that's also an opportunity for you, right?
Yeah,
Because him being too nice to people means that what he was selling you was undervalued because
yeah,
he wasn't charging what it was worth.
yeah. Um, After cleaning the place up and doing a lot of upgrades to it, and I've over time done more and more. Um, I was able to raise prices and everything, but I ended up losing uh, by the end of year two. I think more than 50% of my customers are gone. By the end of year three, I think I was down to about 90%. I might have a dozen or so original customers left.
Yeah.
And that's okay because most of them were the wrong customers for what I wanted to do.
But it still gave you a platform to grow the right
Exactly.
customers, right?
Yep. I got it. I got a place to start. If I had to do it all over again, I probably would have shut the place down for a bit, invested a bunch of money, did all the upgrades that I've done and more. And maybe a month later, reopen new branding and everything, and start fresh. But hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. Why didn't you
So
do that?
um, fear and not really knowing the industry. I mean, I didn't know what these upgrades were going to be that I was going to need to do.
Got it. So
Uh,
in many ways, you couldn't have gone back and done it because you wouldn't have known what things
yeah,
to actually spend. You probably would have overinvested or underinvested, one way or the other.
yeah, or invested in the wrong things, and I didn't know what was OSHA rules, or all kinds of fun stuff like that. There was a lot of substandard things here, electrical specifically. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on electrical just making it legal.
Yeah.
Uh, when Because I was creating a new company, this triggered a bunch of inspections, uh, and the fire department came in and had a field day.
Yeah, I'll
uh,
bet.
yeah, but they gave me plenty of time. They were kind. And they didn't require me to do everything right away, but some stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can't just drill a hole in the wall and put a extension cord through it. That's illegal.
But they had done that, I'm assuming.
Yes, you can't daisy chain extension cords and and stuff like that. You can't do that.
Power equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, what else did you learn after taking over? What were the other key things that you'd point out were things you did? It sounds like you cleaned up and upgraded the brand.
Mhm.
You raised prices over time. Any other
Mhm.
things that were really key in terms of getting the profitability up and therefore the underlying value of the business?
Oh, from day one, advertising. They didn't. The previous owners didn't understand advertising at all, and that was something I was able to do immediately. I got Google, and Google ads are super cheap for brick and mortar shops.
Huh.
Same with Yelp. You could spend now. They wouldn't have thought it was cheap, but
Yeah.
at this stage, I'm spending maybe $3,000 a month to Google. I don't give like $300 or something like that to Yelp because I'm focusing on Google.
Yep.
And then mailers I did in the future. We have a Facebook presence, although I don't spend a lot of effort on that. But really, Google is the biggest one.
Yeah.
And hire someone that can manage that for you, and you're off to the races, and you immediately start getting business.
Yeah.
I think.
How did you find someone to hire to do that?
I joined a business coaching group specifically for auto repair. I'm on my second one now. The first one was called.
Did you find them?
Facebook advertised it to me because I started joining all these auto shop owner groups on Facebook and everything, and eventually someone mentioned it, and so Shop Fix Academy it's called. They're based in outside of Nashville, Franklin, Tennessee, by Nashville, and I learned a ton because at the end, it was at the beginning of by March or April of 22, or was it? No, 23. It's the way I explain it to people is my bag of tricks is empty. We were flatlining. We were doing the same, about the same revenue 3 months in a row from the year before, and nothing, no thing that I tried was working. So I said, I need help. And so I reached out, joined them, and they started finding all kinds of things that I did well, but many things that I can do to improve.
Yeah, can you give us a couple examples just to highlight what they helped you see that you couldn't see as a new owner coming in?
They got me to almost immediately hire a second service advisor.
Okay.
I had one, and I was in the middle of hiring a receptionist to help with checkouts and stuff like that. But they were saying that's a mistake because, yes, a sales advisor may cost a lot more because they get paid a lot of commission based. But someone that's commission based is out there to make you money. They are not an expense. They are an investment. And immediately I started seeing a jump in revenue and everything just from doing that.
So that just came from higher conversions on leads you were already paying for? Yeah.
Yeah. Higher conversions and on those leads and on my regular customers, as opposed to just what the receptionist was doing is she would write up everything that the advisors found, or excuse me, the technicians found that's wrong with the cars. She'd write it up and then just text it to them, and then they'd say, "No thanks, okay," and then just walk away. A salesperson will explain, no, you need those brakes. You're literally, you have no pads left at all. You cannot drive this. It is unsafe. Oh, I didn't understand that. So a salesperson that understands the industry is able to do that. And actually, we're doing a major service to our customers that way. That was one. The other big one was loaner cars. I wanted to do them. Again, I have a pretty big lot, so I had space for cars, and I got a dealer's license at some point because I wanted to dabble in that. I don't like selling cars, by the way, but I'm able to buy cars at the auction cheap. Fix them up. And I was going to. I wanted to do loaner cars, but I was like, all the liability. Someone takes one of my loaner cars and decides to drive it through a classroom full of kids. I'm screwed. But they explained to me, Shop Fix Academy explained to me the steps of how to eliminate that. And at a high level, I created a new LLC that owns all the cars, that is a rental car company that has rental car insurance and everything else, and they lease the cars back to my shop. So that solved that problem, and immediately, no one does loaner cars around here, even the dealerships, which is weird. So that immediately added day one. I had a car come in here, and I had just set it all up, and I had one car ready, and the guy's like, my car's making this noise, and we found out it's a job we had done many times on Chryslers and Dodges. It starts ticking, and it ends up being like about a $3,000 job. It's lifters are going bad. And the guy's like, I'd love to get this fixed, but it's my only car. Hold on, I got a car for you. Here's the keys.
So you
Sold.
closed the deal and made an upsell.
Exactly.
And that all came from them because you only saw obstacles with it, whereas they helped you see the opportunities to mitigate those risks.
Exactly. Yeah. And they found many more things, but I think those are the two biggest ones that they identified. The mailers was also something they got me to do. I tried it one time, sending mailers out to people, and tried it for a couple months. It failed. I'm like, this is stupid. It's a waste of money. I
Yeah.
don't like them. I throw them away. But it's a numbers game, and if you design them correctly, if you can get a 0.5% to 1% of them returned every month, and that adds a lot of cars to your shop, and it
Yeah.
helps to build the business quite a bit. So yeah, those three things were the biggest parts.
Well, James, you have such an interesting background because you have done the trifecta. You've done the startup game, you've done the franchise game, and you've now done the existing business acquisition game.
Yeah.
So, having been through those, had some failures, had some successes, what have you learned? Like, what do you share with people when they come to you and say, "Hey, Jim, you've done some great things. Like, what can you tell me about going down this path of business ownership?"
Everyone's going to say this over and over again. You're going to hear it from a lot of places. You got to fail. We're all going to fail at some point, but you can't just give up because you had a minor blip in the road. Learn from it and move on. There's going to be you can't control everything. Try to mitigate whatever you can control. If you can get insurance that'll cover certain things, whatever, do it. But there's some stuff you can't control. You cannot control a pandemic.
Yeah.
But I can now because auto repair shop didn't close down.
No, and in fact, it sounds like that experience, you sifted the gold out of that, which is, hey, I
Yep,
got laid off and I had a business that failed. So now I'm going to look differently for this next business opportunity to make sure I'm not exposed to that same risk.
yep, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. You got to learn from your failures.
Yeah.
Um, geez, yeah, if you really want to get into business and you have no clue about it, get help. There
Yeah.
are a million different places out there. Many years ago, I checked out SCORE.
Yeah.
I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's a bunch of retired entrepreneurs that are there to help you for little to nothing.
Yeah.
And they're I learned quite a bit. That's how I actually found the franchise. Actually, it was
Oh,
through
okay.
SCORE.
This is
Uh, so that's go looking for help. Um,
sounds like SCORE was one. Another one was finding some industry specific
yep.
coaches and consultants. Any other
Mhm.
places that you found particularly good help that are worth pointing out?
Again, I had a lot of experience that I had learned from my uncle in business, but that was many years ago, and he's long since passed. So I wasn't able to lean on him, but uh, just ask questions to anyone. And just during these random conversations, sometimes you bring something up, you little random things will come up, just little tidbits here and there that you'll hear from someone, and you'll look it up, and you're like, oh, let me look into this. Um, or the other day I was talking about my business at the 2 days ago. I was at a coffee shop, and guy was sitting there, one of the baristas at a Starbucks, and I was chatting with him. He goes, "Oh, what kind of business do you do? You've been here many times." "Oh, I have an auto shop." "Oh, let me. I got a problem with my car." Just mentioning my business has people, wanting to, bring their cars into me now. And I've had actually several customers, friends and stuff like that, or acquaintances from all over the Bay Area bring their car over to me, even though they're nowhere near
Yeah. Turns out you do like to sell. You just sell in a
here.
different way.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you say passion, what does that mean to you? Like, how did you find that within the business, the thing that really lights you up? Because I don't know that you would have guessed 20 years ago that was going to be an auto repair
No,
shop.
I never saw that coming. I'm going to be honest. Even now, I would say For me, it's not the actual industry. It's not the fixing the cars or anything like that. It's solving problems for people.
Yeah.
Any type of business like that, I am happy with. To be able to pay my employees what they're getting paid feels good to me. To be able to that I know that they would have never gotten that anywhere else. I love that part. I just was chatting with one of my employees, one of the sales guys that I have. He's going to top 120 this year. My foreman, he's in going to be about the 120 area as well. Okay, I'm talking about. And my other technicians, one guy that's another guy that's still here. I inherited with the shop. He was making $20 an hour, and now he's making on average about 42, 43, so more than double his income. And he's doing better work now because I'm giving him the training that he needs and all this and that. So those are the parts I like. I like knowing that I did something for these guys, and I know that my customers are getting excellent quality. They don't like the price sometimes because we are definitely the most expensive in the couple-mile radius of here, but they're getting a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty. They're getting loaner cars. They're getting a lift ride home. They're getting quality parts put on their car, not aftermarket things, aftermarket things like some of my competitors are doing. You know, just the overall quality is the part that I like, and it could be any business that's in that range where you're having a bunch of blue collar workers. I really like.
That's what you've learned about yourself. I'm curious if LinkedIn came back tomorrow and said, Jim, we are going to double what we paid you before to come back and work for us. Would you make that trade? If so, why or why not?
Double.
Yeah, double.
Full package? No, still not enough. Because I know that I'm already making, I don't want to talk about dollars on this, but I'm already making about what I was making at LinkedIn. And I'm in the middle of hiring a manager, which will eliminate my need to be here. As it is, I'm already here maybe one day a week. I go on 3-week vacations, even without a manager here, and the shop ran just fine.
Yeah.
I had a 10-week jury duty that I just finished.
10 weeks.
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I was barely here for that entire time, and it just ran. If I take a job anywhere, I'm there. I'm expected 40 hours a week at least, and much more stress and everything. This isn't stress anymore. This place.
So you found your path to a more passive business. It just required you to work hard for a couple of years to really build it up to support that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now my goal is to have multiple shops, and one of the steps of doing that was to hire a manager for the shop because this has to be 100% rock solid, not needing me at all for months on end. And
you go to the next one.
Yeah, so I can go on to the next one. So I figure maybe about a year or so down the line, I'll be on number 2, and then number 3 will be soon after that.
Love it. So you've got a vision for the future.
Yep.
James, I really appreciate you spending the time. This was really fun to hear about your journey, especially how many stops and starts you had along the way. You got a little flavor of all the different ways of approaching business ownership, and it really seems like you've learned some important things from all those failures that have led to you being in this position of success. And it sounds like fulfillment. You really found something that feeds you and your soul and makes an impact that you're proud of. So congratulations, man.
Thank you. It's been fun. It really has. The whole process. There's been ups and downs, but I wouldn't trade it in. Yeah. I would like to get the money back that I lost on on Bishops, but I learned a lot.
Yeah, that was the price of your education. That was your second college degree.
Yeah, that was my bachelor's, master's, and PhD all in one.
Well, nice to talk with you, Dr. Kellas.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, thanks for taking the time, James. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to the Create the Life You Want podcast. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to future episodes by clicking the subscribe button, you know where. If you're an aspiring business owner, you may also want to subscribe to the Create the Life You Want newsletter for more inspiration and tips delivered to your inbox every week. You can find the link to that in the show notes, as well as on my personal website, jeremyames.com. If you've already decided you want to start or buy a business, consider exploring your financing options by heading to our sponsor's website at www.guidantfinancial.com. That's Guidant financial.com. See you in the next episode.